Hi Blender fans, and welcome once again to Blender TC. In today's tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves a simple lamp, but stay with me right to the end of this tutorial because we're going to do something special with this lamp, just to make it that little bit more special. Pressing the 7 key, we're going to keep the default scene, and what I'm going to do is we're going to actually select the camera here, and G and X to move it across. So what we've got there, we've got a camera that's looking out into space over there, and we want it to look at our cube. So I'm going to add an object to this, and we're going to have it look at an empty. So I'm just going to add in an empty like that, and I'm just going to scale up that empty so we can see it. So looking at that, we've got our camera, press the 7 key, add an object to constraint. This way we can actually make the camera track to our empty. So add object constraint, track to, and I'm going to select the empty that we actually had earlier. So selecting the empty from the list, and as you can see, it's now looking at that cube, or it's looking towards the cube, but it's actually looking at the empty. So we're just going to scale this cube up like that, and then pressing the tab key to go into edit mode, I'm just going to select that face, press the X key and delete the face, and same on the front face. So in effect we've made ourselves a little room. So I'm just going to fetch this cube, G and Z, up a little bit in my scene to actually simulate a little room. As well, it'll show you a simple technique for making a lamp. Let's just add this, add a mesh, and we're going to add in a UV sphere like that, and that's it. Shade smooth. And we're going to add in a base for my UV sphere, so add in mesh, and we're going to add in a cylinder and scale this in the Z like that. I'm going to go to edit mode, and we're just going to put a loop cut at the bottom and a loop cut a little bit further up like that, and I'm just going to subdivide this by 1, so add modifier, and it's down here somewhere, but this thing's in the way. But what you can do is Control and 2 will actually add a subdivision modifier. Shade smooth. I'm just going to scale that up just like that, and this is going to be G and Z, the base of my lamp, or my simple lamp. And what I'm going to do is select this top face, E to extrude, S to scale, and extrude along the normal, so I'm going up inside the lamp, and if we go into wireframe you'll be able to see that. So we're making that kind of shape. Control R to add a couple of more loop cuts because I want this to be quite sharp, and that's it. We've made ourselves a simple touch lamp that you see in different places. We made ourselves a simple touch lamp. And you might say, well, that's nothing special, so let's just add some materials to this. We're going to add a new material, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a simple shiny glossy material for the base. Take the roughness right down, and I'm keeping that like a silver colour. And as you can see, what we've got now is we've got this globe. Just going to scale this up because I want it a little bit bigger. G and Z just to move it up a bit, and I'm also going to make this into a new material like an orangey yellow. And what we're going to do is leave this on the default principled shader because we want some of the attributes of the principal shader. So I'm going to take that right up, take the shine down, or take the shine up by actually reducing the roughness Right, so, and lastly but not least, here comes the really good effect. We're going to actually add some movement to this, but first of all we're just going to add some attributes to it, and this is the bit that I wanted to show you at the end. So we're not very far away from the end, but the attributes we're going to add in, you're just going to go into go down here, and what you've got is you've got a blend mode. So you want to enable screen space refractions, or the reflections won't actually appear in the will not appear in our scene. So enable screen place refractions right down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to change this to alpha clip and alpha clip. Right, what alpha clip does is that when we add the actual shader in a minute, anything that's black will be clear and anything that isn't black will be partially see-through. So it's like working on a shade of greys. Black is totally see-through and slightly lighter colours are less see-through. So you can add all sorts of effects, and I'll let you try that yourselves. But for this one we're just going to use a black and a white to actually enable this. And in fact, to show you that, what I'm going to do is set that back to opaque on both these. And what we can do is now go into the shading tab, and as you can see we've got our colours here, and what we need to do is we need to add in a thing called a math node. So search MATH, and we're going to put that value from the alpha down here, and we're going to put that into the value. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add a thing called a Musgrave texture. Musgrave texture, that adds a special effect, and it's found somewhere down here. Let me find it. Got it under textures myself. There it is, under textures. Add in a Musgrave texture. I'm going to take the height into this top value. Right, in this maths node we've not actually given it any settings yet, and what we're going to do is we're going to add some settings to this by pressing the add, and we're just going to put greater than. And as you can see, what we've got now is we've got two values. If you put it in the bottom value, it puts the black dots there. If you put it in the top value, it goes the other way. So we want to actually put it in the bottom value. This here controls the scale of your spots. As you can see, the spots are like, they're not a uniform shape, which is really handy for the effect we want to do in just a few minutes. So let's just get set some of the parameters of this. Right, here I've got some parameters. So we set it to scale 5, 7, 2, 2, and then 0.1 in the value. So just let me leave that on the screen for a minute. So 7, 5, 2, 2, 7, 5, 2, 2, and we change this to 0.1. And as you can see, that's made some like planetary cloud effects. If you actually add a colour ramp into that, you can actually, and your black to grey colour ramp in between here, you can actually make quite a good cloud effect actually. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back into layout window. So now what we can see is we've got our lamp, and we've got the black, and we've got the other colours. Right, so what we can do now is change this alpha to alpha clip on that side, alpha clip on that side, and as you can see, it's made ourselves quite a good scene. But there's no lights in it yet, so that's where we have a bit of fun. And I'm just going to get rid of all the default lights. In fact, no, I'll just leave them on for the minute, and I'm just going to add in a light, and the light I'm going to add in is a point light. And I'm just going to add 3 of these in, so I'm just going to add point light, and add light, point light. Right, so we've got 3 lights in there, but they're not very bright. And what we're going to do is change the colour of these point lights, and we're going to move them in our scene. So the first one, I'm just going to get it. So we need to keep it still inside our inside our globe, what I did there is press the full stop and then press the 1 key, then full stop to actually zoom in on it. So we've got our point light. It's not very bright, and I'm just going to move it G and just move it somewhere inside our ball. Take the second point light, move it somewhere else in our ball, and take the third point light and move it somewhere else in our ball. I'll just move that down near the bottom here. So now we've got 3 lights going from 3 different positions, and all we've got to do now is increase the brightness, change some colours, and we've got a really marvellous effect. Right, and then top of the shop we're going to add one more effect to actually make this look absolutely superb, making dancing reflections on the ceiling. Let's increase the strength of this to 200. So we don't want the first one to be we don't want all these to be white, but I'm just going to actually change them all to 200 just to show you the effect. So 1, 2, change the last one to 200. So I've got 3. Now it's up to you what colours you do, but I'm just going to go red, green and blue. So one's green, one's red, and of course one is going to be blue. Right. Next thing I'm going to do is just get rid of all my default lights, which is the suns and all that kind of thing. So I used area lights mainly for this. So delete, delete, delete. So now you're left with this fantastically psychedelic looking scene. But just to make it that little bit better, we've got 250 frames there. You can set that to 500 if you want more frames, but what we're going to do is go to the first frame, so the starting frame, which is 1. So select 1 in there, and then we're going to press I, so lock rotation and scale. Then we're going to go to the last frame, which is 250. This, in fact, let's just click on this actual ball and I'll just show you here. You've got some attributes here, so we can change this to 360. Oops. Forgot to do one thing. What we haven't done. No, sorry. Did it in the wrong box because I did that in the actual where the actual circle is. I need to do it in this box, which is 360. Then press the I key, which actually fixes it. So if we press the space bar now, as you can see, we get a really weird effect in our scene. But it goes from slow to quick and then shortens. And if you want it to actually run linearly, go into animations, select the key, interpolation mode, make it linear. And then if we go back into our layout window and I press the space bar, as you can see, this scene just goes round and around and around. This was all done in Eevee, so you don't need to actually mess about with cycles, which will make it render much more quickly. I've got ambient occlusion selected, bloom, screen space reflections, and motion blur. And just to make something really weird, what you can do is you've got this cube here and you can actually change the actual attributes of that cube by just adding a material, new. So if I've made this into a really shiny material and took the roughness down to 0 or nearly 0 and just made it a little bit less metallic, as you can see, you've got something that's a bit out of this world. Why people don't have silver rooms, I don't know. Thank you for watching me on Blender TC, and if you enjoyed this simple light tutorial, then join me again on my next tutorial, and bye for now.